Hello everybody, welcome to Transy Learning Chemistry videos. Today we'll be discussing about phase changes, and in that we'll be covering the topic heating curve. This is the third video related to practice problems on heating curve. So let's see what all questions we'll be covering in this video. The first question: which process does part Q represents and part S represents? You can see here there is a heating curve of some material where the temperature is plotted on the y-axis and the time is taken on the x-axis. So before answering these two parts, let me first of all label this graph. As this represents the heating curve, so initially this material will be in the solid state, and as the slope, or what we can say, there is rise in temperature, so as per the heating curve there will be no change in the state. So this point also will represent the solid form of that material, and as you can see here that there is no rise in the temperature, so this horizontal line represents the change in the state. So at this point we have the liquid phase, and the process of changing a solid into liquid on heating represents the process of melting. On further heating, the temperature of the liquid will rise, and at this point also we will be having the liquid phase of that material, and at this point there is horizontal line, there is no change in the temperature, so this represents the change in state. So at this point we'll be having the gaseous form of that material, and the change of a liquid into a gaseous form on heating represents the process of boiling, or we can say vaporization. And again the temperature is rising here, so this point represents the gaseous phase. So now let us answer these two questions. Part Q represents, as mentioned here, that in part Q the solid is changing into liquid, and this represents the process of melting. And if we take heat into consideration, then the heat absorbed will be M into L, where L represents the latent heat of fusion. Next, part S represents, you can see here that the part S represents the changing of the liquid into the gaseous form, and this represents the process of boiling. And if we take the heat absorbed into consideration, then the heat absorbed will be M into L. L represents the latent heat of vaporization. M represents the mass of the substance. In this case also M represents the mass of substance. So part Q represents melting, and the part S represents boiling. And I would like to mention here that this point where the solid changes into liquid represents the melting point of the solid, and the point where the liquid changes into gas represents the boiling point of the substance. So for this graph and all of the graph, these 2 points on the temperature axis represent the melting point and the boiling point of the substance. Next question. Write the expression for heat absorbed for the following parts, P and Q. First of all, let me label it quickly. This is the heating curve, so here we have the solid. There is rise in temperature, we have the solid. There is no rise in temperature, so there will be change in state. We have the liquid, and this process represents melting. Then there is rise in temperature, we have liquid here, and there is no rise in temperature, we have gas here, and this represents boiling or vaporization. and again we have the gaseous phase here. You know, then when there is no change in the state, then the heat absorbed is given by mc delta T, where m is the mass of the substance, c is the specific heat capacity of the substance, and delta T is the change in temperature, that is T2 minus T1, that is final temperature minus initial temperature. And whenever there is change in state, or the heat absorbed will be m into L. L are of two types. There is latent heat of fusion and we have latent heat of vaporization. When the solid changes into a liquid on heating, then the heat absorbed in that process is known as latent heat of fusion. And when the liquid changes into a gaseous phase, then the heat absorbed in that process is known as latent heat of vaporization. So as you can see here that in the pre-process, the initial point is solid and the final point is also solid, so there is no change in the state. So the heat absorbed will be equals to mc delta T. Now Q. Q represents a process of melting where the solid is changing into liquid, and whenever there is change in state, the heat absorbed is given by ml. And as the solid is changing into liquid in this Q phase, so it will be latent heat of fusion. Next part. Write the expression for heat absorbed for the following parts R and S. Let me label it quickly. This will be solid, here solid, here liquid, here liquid, here gaseous phase, here gaseous phase. And this process represents melting and this represents boiling. Here I have plotted the graph. We know that when there is no change in state, then the heat absorbed is given by mc delta T, and when there is change in the state, the heat absorbed is given by ml. L can be latent heat of fusion or it can be latent heat of vaporization. So write the expression for heat absorbed for the following parts R. You can see here in R phase, the initial point is also liquid and the final point is also liquid. So there is no change in the state. And whenever there is no change in the state, the heat absorbed is given as mc delta T. Now S. You can see here that S phase represents the process of boiling where the liquid is changing into a gaseous phase. So whenever there is change in the state, the heat absorbed is given by M into L. Here it will be latent heat of vaporization because the liquid is changing into a gaseous phase. So that was all about the practice problems related to heating curve. Thank you very much for watching this video. For more videos, you can visit our website transelearning.com. Have a great day.